Can I just put the question very, very simply to you here? How will Britain's OAPs cope this winter? I was just mulling this over with Russell Quirk, as you might have heard. It is beyond fascinating to me. I mean, I shouldn't have to go over this, but it genuinely stretches every sinew of my being to watch people who would have hyperventilated and wet the bed simultaneously had the Tories gone anywhere near the winter fuel allowance. To hear that same group of people then, and quite casually, justify the Rachel Reeves move. It's extraordinary to watch this in action. You kind of almost would be forgiven for thinking you'd made it up if you didn't see or hear it yourself. Whether it's radio broadcasters, journalists, social media is the classic one. To be sort of beyond unreal, really. Almost saying these words, I feel like, well, it can't be. You know, especially when Labour did their own research into what they claim were the implications of removing the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. This is back in 2017. Labour's own research said that 4,000 pensioners could die as a result of this. So, they literally said that stuff. And now the sort of left-wing client journalism are going the very opposite direction on this one. No, it's absolutely fine. Too many rich pensioners out there. They'll be fine. They'll get a few tax credits to make it up. Everything's hunky-dory. Nothing to see here. I mean, you genuinely couldn't have imagined that. Now, you'll get no argument from me. I've been saying for years, I always use the argument, why should David Cameron's mum get winter fuel allowance? Of course, that's preposterous. It's not about whether you means test something, it's where the line is in the means testing. That is the problem. We also have a further problem with how we treat our elderly in this country. It is frankly beyond contemptible, the way that people in their senior years are treated, much in the same way as it's contemptible in the way we treat former army personnel. See shop doorways this winter for details. 4 in 5 pensioners living below or just above the poverty line are set to lose the winter fuel allowance. I mean, just let that settle in. These are 4 in 5 pensioners living below or just above the poverty line are set to lose their winter fuel allowance. And someone's going to tell me that that's a kind of correct move from the Labour government. That's fine, right? Nothing wrong with that, because they're all rich old duffers, aren't they, the old pensioners? Love it. They've got their nice retirement pot, their lovely private pension in addition to everything else. They have a little cruise once a year. They get summer in Marbella for about a month, and they come back. Life's a good and Rolex watch, 2 cars, having it off royally with the finances. If anybody seriously thinks that that's what defines... I think middle classes whose own grandparents are probably, or were probably, quite middle class, that's how they see pensioners. Because that group, the middle class people who pretend they're not really middle class, are sort of accidentally middle class. That's not really middle class. My dad was just a doctor and my mum was a dentist. You know, that kind of person. So I'm essentially working class. Yep, spoiler alert, no, you're not. They don't have an experience of what it's like for the elderly, what it's like for working class people in general. And OAPs from that demographic are not wearing Rolex watches. They're not going on any holidays and haven't done for years. They sometimes don't turn the heating on, before this caper, by the way. And they struggle to make ends meet, literally counting out every 10p's worth of outgoings from the house. Labour's decision means that Labour's decision to means test the subsidy previously paid to all pensioners will mean 82% of poorer older people, including many aged over 80, disabled or living alone, will lose the benefit. This is according to Age UK. This isn't like according to the Tory party or some other political organisation. This is Age UK. Under Reeves' proposal, 23% of the 10.7 million pensioners who will lose out are living in or just above the poverty line, according to the report. What kind of world are we living in where we can't look after this particular group of people? It isn't just obscene and insulting, it's frankly criminal that a government would be considering this move right now while simultaneously walking around in 5 grand's worth of suit and 2.5K's worth of specs, lording it up in Manhattan, going to pool parties at mansions in Kent, and at the same time making announcements. You can't make this up. This is rotten from start to finish. How will Britain's OAPs cope this winter? And I'm aiming this particularly at you if you are in this group. Whenever we sort of talk in this area, roughly, we always get, you know, communications, whether it's calls or texts from people who explain very simply in a few lines their own disposition on this one. So if you are in that age group, if you are the pensioner that is being talked about here, where you don't have loads of money swilling around, you don't have a second home, you don't have holidays, you don't have beanos out to the local pub twice a week, you don't go out hardly at all. For no other reason, you just simply cannot afford it. You cannot afford it. So can we teach a lesson, please, to some of those horrendous characters who are coming out the woodwork from the left-wing part of the political spectrum, trying to suggest that all pensioners are doing just fine, 1 in 5 are worth £1 million or whatever it is, because some people, yeah, there are rich pensioners. That's never been disputed, but there are many more pensioners who are anything but, who are already living below the poverty line, and it's about to get worse. The fuel allowance was not an answer to everything, but it was a help. And it's a help that people have got used to over the years. You suddenly take that away. Well, what sort of country are we? What sort of people are we if you can't look after people in their older age? People who are potentially vulnerable in terms of having. There's a lot of fighting fit old folk out there. We all know that. You could be 90 and fit as a fiddle, fit as a butcher's dog, as they say. But there are many others that have got health considerations. And turning off the heating. I came down this morning at home, it was a little bit chilly, whacked up the heating to about 21, thought I'll keep it like that for an hour, warm up a bit, you know, as I'm sitting there working. And as I did it, I literally thought of the people that can't do it, the people that need that heating more than me cannot do what I just did. Press a button, stick it up to 21. In fact, it's probably never above 15 in some people's homes, if it's on at all. How will Britain's OAPs cope this winter? Just tell me your story as somebody who's in that group, or the story of somebody around you, whether it's your parents or a relative or a neighbour. Can we just send a message out, please, to all of those people that think OAPs are fine with this reduction, that it won't make any difference? 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. It'd be interesting and fascinating, frankly, to take your calls and your own situation and experience on this one.